Nothing ever arises from nothing. Invention, strictly speaking, is little more than recombining images already gathered and deposited in the memory. Hello and welcome to the Ecosystem tutorial. All play is first and foremost free activity. The pleasure principle is forgetting the self. I like to take a simple situation and let the story grow from that. Just as internal thoughts lead to external movements. Plants are not noted for their dynamic lifestyles. What fascinates me about plants is their settledness. And because they stay in place, they have to make compromises with the space and time. They have to adapt their size and structure. Plum tree, cultivated tree of the East that can grow in every kind of soil. It can reach a height of 9 meters, around 3,000 polygons per tree. Green is the color of the middle. In its perfect neutrality between all extremes, its effect is calming, without being tiring. The color green promotes qualities such as willingness to help, tolerance and satisfaction. But being a gardener is easier than a farmer. Dry bush, groups of wild and branching bushes, grow almost everywhere in nature. About 2,500 polygons per bush. Attention! In some cases, the plants do not scale properly. In outer space, moss grows in the form of a spiral, presumably a primitive growth pattern that was lost through gravity. Spiral-formed growth is a very efficient way of spreading the spores. Law-based object creation means each of the cells gained has a number of firmly defined neighbors. Now every cell is given a condition that changes with a dependency on the condition of the individual neighbors. In this way, growth processes can be simulated. The branching out occurs in a binary sense. The length of the branching segments, child segments, are related to the length of the father segment. Plant models are organized by species. Some are supplied with the software, while many more are available for purchase. Each plant model placed into a scene is grown within the software, according to species-specific rules. The plant model's embedded information allows them to bend and twist in the wind. Individual plants capitulate. That is the transition from special to general, the simulation of a population. Click OK to render. Species that form a community must either share the same household and the same demands on the nature of the location, or the life of one species must be so dependent on the other that it finds what it uses in the other. However, it is impossible in practice that the bonds between similar and dissimilar atoms would be exactly the same, and the difference between the two bonds would be exactly zero. But there are rules of assembly. Decay near foreign objects means the plants begin to shrink close to the edges. In other words, community is enforced. Occlusion culling. Hidden objects are detected and rejected. Dynamic population is only rendering the scene within the view of the camera. When two circles meet, the assertiveness of both plants is determined. The stronger plant dominates the weaker. Some plants very much understand how to live even when the others have consumed most of the resources. Most of them, however, do not. Simplicity, efficiency, and reliability go hand in hand. We can define 4 categories: A. Pioneers, B. Innovators, C. Adapters, D. Followers. All individuals and species optimize their own chances of survival and are only limited through the control of others. One can do with effort only what one can do effortlessly. Satisfaction is constant when there is no preference between two different ecosystems. The particles are randomly distributed. Therefore, the society is fully integrated. In this case, one speaks of an ideal mixture, since everyone is equal. But in the absence of a preferential binding, there is also a lack of any kind of order. Even positive feelings towards strangers separate society, because loyalty to the stranger is stronger than the bond to one's own. Not very exciting at the moment, however, you can see the displacement. Emotional bonds in society correspond with the potential bonding energy in thermodynamics. It is a thankless task. There are thousands of knots in the subdivision surface, each of which could have millions of interactions. Thus, we have to use clever techniques to avoid a computational nightmare. The scene now contains a little over 52 million polygons. Mobility here is a diffuse travel. In the diffusion, atoms move randomly from place to place. In this movement, they can always jump only there where an empty place is offered. This migrant flow is generally not an undirected movement, but is mostly determined by a clear goal. Pay attention to the decay. Sometimes it becomes a little bit confusing if your ecosystem doesn't populate properly. Introduction of new elements, whether biotic or abiotic, into an ecosystem tend to have a disruptive effect. Problematic species are opportunists. High variability and plasticity are frequently named qualities. They can prosper everywhere. A central aspect of this non-settledness is control. Who is not bound is difficult to control. A harmless integration of the new into the already existing order is not provided in this thought model. A neophyte is a beginner. This plant species was recently introduced to an area. It has, with human help, overstepped its natural borders, and the moment of its immigration is not yet so far back that it could already be native. For that reason, it is foreign. One's own becomes problematic when it loses its definitive quality and therefore its absolute outline. The level of confusion. I have to immediately clear the desk. Being other loses its stigmatizing relevance when all would recognize themselves as being strange. The question follows from the I and puts it in a relationship to a newly thought community. That also means giving up the power position of affirmation to the other. It is a sort of osmosis, namely, to allow the inner voice, the voice of the other in us, to rave. Now I have a little over 6.3 billion polygons. Becoming also means enduring. But a couple of tricks doesn't result in comprehensive understanding. Don't worry if you don't remember all of these options.